It's been a roller coaster of emotions for Broncos country this past week. After snapping the skid against Washington, Von Miller heads to Los Angeles via trade with a road trip to the Lone Star State on deck for the Broncos. We'll take a look at Denver's new look pass rush against the Cowboys, an offense looking to turn the corner, and why Denver believes there's still plenty of opportunity and talent on this team with 9 games remaining. Welcome into Broncos Weekend, everybody. I'm Matt Boyer alongside Alexis Perry and the Hall of Famer back in the gold jacket, Mr. Steve Atwater.
Hey, what's going on, man? Hey, we got to win, get the gold jacket. We need another one.
I like it. Guys, it has been a roller coaster of emotions. We said it. I am emotionally drained after these past 5 days. The Broncos said their see you laters to Von Miller, but as Justin Simmons mentioned, we've got a game to play. Dallas is coming up, and this is one of the best teams in the NFC. They are going to need to lean on this new look pass rush as we take a look at Malik Reed, Shelby Harris, Draymond Jones for the Broncos to replace number 58's production. Alexis on the edge, Malik Reed looked great.
Yep.
Jonathan Cooper also getting some production. Stephen Weatherly. You can never replace a Hall of Famer, but what gives you hope that these guys can sustain a high level of production?
Well, Malik Reed's production against Washington is what gives me hope. He had 2 sacks, 3 tackles, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. And that is really the production that he's capable of. We've seen flashes of it since he became a starter back in 2019, but that is something that we're going to need to see more consistently from here on out. Now, Jonathan Cooper, he was the steal of the draft for the Denver Broncos because of the kind of player he is both on and off the field. He is a true leader, but he's the guy that creates an incredible amount of pressure like we saw in Cleveland with 3 quarterback hits. I don't really expect him to get as many sacks as I expect him to really create opportunities for other guys to get home. And of course, Stephen Weatherly, the new guy from Minnesota. I absolutely love this guy. He's long and athletic, and he gives offensive tackles a different look, like George Payton mentioned in his press conference this week. That is really beneficial for this Broncos pass rush. So all in all, I think it will be a group effort to replace Von Miller, but I think this group has the talent to do so. It will be a tough task this week in Dallas, though.
DC Ed Donatel said that Bradley Chubb could also be back in a couple of weeks, so that group might get even stronger. Steve, on the inside with Jones and Harris. These guys both had field goal blocks last week. They got to the quarterback. That's the type of game that you need against a team like Washington that isn't great offensively. It's good for the chemistry. What do you think, from a chemistry standpoint, stood out to you about that performance?
Yeah, they played really, really well, coming up with those big plays, the blocked field goals. And I think that gives them confidence, but it also gives the rest of the defensive line confidence. Whenever players in your same position group make plays, guess what? That can be contagious, and it's going to need to be contagious going up against this Dallas Cowboys offense. The rushing game that they have is potent with Ezekiel Elliott and Pollard. So it's just a precursor, hopefully, for what we're going to do next week against the Cowboys there.
As good as those 2 guys were against Taylor Heineke, they're going to need to be even better against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys as we take a look at this quarterback matchup this week, Teddy Bridgewater and Dak Prescott. AP, I want to get to Teddy Bridgewater first.
Yeah.
Only threw 1 touchdown pass, but his rating was over 100. He was extremely efficient. What did you see from that game that he could build off of against Dallas?
Yeah, a rating over 100. He completed at least 70% of his passes for the 5th time this season, which is tied for the 3rd most in a single season in franchise history. But at the end of the day, the Broncos only scored 17 points up against a defense that was giving up the most points in the league up until that point. So I think the Broncos, they were better on 3rd down. They were better in the red zone, like Teddy Bridgewater mentioned this week. But it was the drives where they had explosive plays. Those are the drives that led to points. So I think those 3 or 4 explosive plays are what the Broncos really need to build off of this week. They have Jerry Jeudy, the best route runner possibly in the league. They have 2 guys in Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton who simply just don't drop the ball. And so going up against a Dallas defense that gives up about 280 yards through the air per game, the Broncos have to exploit that weakness, unlike they did last week against Washington, if they want to kind of keep up with this Dallas offense.
Steve, last week, Dak Prescott didn't play. It was Cooper Rush. Dallas's offense still had success, but when he's played, Dak has been extremely efficient with the football. If you're Vic Fangio and you're preparing your defense this week, what concerns you most about what Dak Prescott's able to do?
Well, Dak is a great quarterback, and don't want to take anything away from Dak, but when I look at Dak Prescott and that Dallas Cowboys offense, and I compare that to the Denver Broncos offense, what stands out to me is that offensive line. Dak Prescott has time to sit back in the pocket, scope around. He got a chance to, go to drink of water, and then he can pass the football. I guess that's the thing that's most impressive to me, the offensive line, is giving them the time to find open receivers, to make the big plays down the field, to have that 73.1 completion percentage, 16 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. That offensive line is a big part of that. Not taking anything away from him, but that's a big part.
That offensive line has also opened up some huge holes in the run game for Ezekiel Elliott as we take a look at the running back matchup for this game, and it's a good one. Melvin Gordon and Ezekiel Elliott. Alexis, Melvin's got 3 touchdowns the last couple of games, 2 of those through the air. He's always been the focal point of the running game, but how much more valuable has Gordon's receiving ability made him these past couple of weeks?
Well, that was one of the biggest reasons why the Denver Broncos brought in Melvin Gordon in the first place, was his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. We remember from 2016 to 2018, 2 of which were Pro Bowl seasons for Melvin Gordon. The Chargers were using him as a receiver. He had 30 receiving yards per game on about 5 targets on average throughout those 3 seasons. Here in Denver, he's averaging 18 receiving yards on less than 3 targets per game here in 2021. So I would really love to see the number of times the Broncos use Melvin Gordon as a pass catcher go up. Maybe target him 4 or 5 times a game and see if he can replicate that Pro Bowl performance as a receiver. He's already on pace to match his career high in receiving touchdowns with 4. I'd like to see him beat that this year.
Steve, on the other side, Minnesota did a nice job against Zeke, 16 rushes, 50 yards. But it also looked like they loaded up against the run and dared Cooper Rush to beat him, which he did.
Yes,
So with Dak back now, how do you think the Broncos will account for Zeke?
Well, I'll tell you what, Ezekiel Elliott, it's going to be a great challenge for this defense, especially at this time right here. He's a guy who's fast. He's got those huge legs. He's strong, and he runs extremely hard. And he has a rare combination of speed and quickness. Most guys are either fast or they're quick. He's got both of those going for him. And right now, he's 5th in the NFL in rushing yards. I think he has like 571, 573, 571 rushing yards. Now, the other 4 guys in front of him, guess what? They've already played 8 games. He's only played 7. So, it's going to be a challenge for us, but hey, the guy's got to be ready. I like to see us get Kenny Young on him, just kind of shadow him wherever he goes. And our defensive linemen, especially the edge guys, are going to have to make sure that they don't get too far upfield to create any more seams for him than necessary.
Vic Fangio said the balance of this Cowboys offense is what makes them most effective. And so that run and the pass, as you mentioned, it's going to be a tall task for the Broncos defensive line. We've got to take a quick break. When we come back on Broncos Weekend, we'll take a look at the history between these 2 teams, including Peyton Manning's run to daylight and Steve flashing some skills with an interception against the Cowboys. That's next. Denver and Dallas boast 2 of the NFL's flagship franchises, but the Cowboys and Broncos have only met 13 times since 1970, with Denver holding an 8-5 all-time advantage. The lone postseason meeting between the 2 clubs came in Super Bowl 12, Denver's first ever Super Bowl appearance. That day, Tom Landry's defense forced 8 turnovers as the Cowboys captured the title 27-10. Since then, however, Denver has owned the series, winning 8 of the last 10 meetings, including the last 6 meetings dating back to 1998. The last time Denver traveled to Dallas, it was a game for the ages.
They run it, Moreno behind Mitch Unrein. Nope, actually Peyton Manning with the play fake, and Peyton Manning scampers into the end zone.
Peyton Manning's rushing touchdown, along with his 4 touchdown passes and 414 yards through the air, helped Denver defeat Dallas 51-48 in an old-fashioned shootout.
They run the counter left side. C.J. Anderson with the big hole. 15, 10, C.J. Anderson 5 to the pylon. Touchdown, Denver!
And in their most recent meeting, C.J. Anderson's 2 touchdowns and Aqib Talib's 103-yard pick 6 proved more than the Cowboys could handle as the Broncos beat the Cowboys 42-17. Talib's touchdown still stands as the longest pick 6 in team history.
And running is Aqib Talib. He's going to try to score. Talib with a blocker in front on Prescott at the 30, at the 20. Talib at the 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Denver!
A win on Sunday against Dallas would push Denver's record against NFC East opponents to 3-0 on the season. Whether it was Peyton Manning, Terrell Davis, or Aqib Talib making the play, nothing warms a Broncos fan's heart like a victory over the Cowboys. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. Okay, Steve, you had some tough battles against the Cowboys. You had a pick against them in your career. But, man, those mid-'90s teams, the Aikman, Smith, Irving teams, what do you remember about those battles?
Well, man, I remember guys just going at it. We had great games. Yeah, they won early on. The last time I played them, I think it was 98.
Yep. You
got
guys
a chance. Yeah, we did them in pretty good there.
saw TD there running through the defensive line for the Cowboys. But that franchise as a whole, you know, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, I just remember when we were playing in the mid-'90s that they always looked like they were having a good time. The players looked like they were having a good time. They had great players. They had great coaches. And then the owners, Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones, you know, they're Razorbacks. So every time we get together, we get a chance to chop it up a bit. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for the Cowboys organization there.
Steve, one guy who's looking forward to this matchup probably more than most is Courtland Sutton, a native of Brenham, Texas, a childhood Cowboys fan. He's past that part in his life now. Courtland Sutton wants to prove to his family and friends back in Texas and the league at large that he is one of the top wideouts in the NFL on one of the league's toughest teams.
I did grow up a Cowboys fan. My dad and my grandpa are big Cowboys fans, so, you know, I did grow up watching them, but, you know, I'm Broncos country now, you know, through and through. I actually had a chance to play there my senior year in high school. We played our state championship game at the you know, I think it was AT&T Stadium at the time, but I got to play there, and, you know, it was a great atmosphere to be able to experience with, you know, childhood friends, and it's definitely a memory, but, you know, to be able to go back and play, you know, in the NFL, this is going to be a lot of fun, and, you know, just looking forward to it.
Four-man rush, floats one down the sideline, wants Courtland Sutton. Sutton is there and makes the catch.
Being able to get those plays and get the timing down to where, you know, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, you know, some of those missed opportunities, eliminating those and turning them into big plays. And reps are the biggest thing that I feel like continue to help us.
Bridgewater airs it out downfield, and what a catch! A one-handed grab by Sutton.
Like I said, have everything right in front of us, and so it's upon us to continue to maximize each opportunity to come out and practice, each opportunity to go out and play a game, maximizing those so that, like I said, when we look up at the end of the year, we're in the spot that we want to be in.
Steve, this one obviously means a lot to Courtland Sutton. His family was at the Houston game a couple years back when the Broncos played in Houston, a big contingent there, but this one's closer to home at Brenham. He's played in that stadium before, in that state championship game that he referenced, and he's likely to draw one of the NFL's best corners in Trayvon Diggs, a defensive player of the year candidate. How do you think that's going to impact his ability to really put his mark on this game?
Well, I think that's going to be a great matchup. The fans love to pay to see these types of matchups. Great wide receivers going up against great cornerbacks. Now, we got to remember, Trayvon Diggs, he's just in his second year. Right now, he has 8 penalties, 2 of which were either declined or offset. But I'm also equally impressed with Courtland Sutton coming back from the knee surgery that he had last year, being very productive this year. I'm looking forward to this being a great battle. I don't think that the matchup will affect Courtland's ability to make plays, and I think that if we continue to go to him, Courtland could have a big game. I'm looking for him to have another 100-plus yard game.
Steve, Courtland Sutton and Justin Simmons were mentioned this week by George Paton about being the face of the franchise, being the next guy after Von Miller departs to really lead this team. And Justin Simmons is coming off one of his best games as a Bronco. 2 picks against Washington, played well in coverage. Are we seeing him become the face of this franchise in real time? He looks like he's on the ascent right now.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I see Justin Simmons, I see Courtland Sutton, I see Dalton Reisner, really all being the future faces of this franchise. And I also think with Bradley Chubb and Josie Jewell, when they get back from injuries, they'll be in that same mode. Great leaders in college, and they're going to be great leaders in the NFL as well.
We got to take a quick break, but when we come back on Broncos Weekend, Alexis Perry is chatting with DNVR's Zach Stevens about Von Miller's departure and who needs to step up on this Broncos defense dealing with a lot of injuries. That's next. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. It's been a historic week, Broncos country, and for a local look as to what it all means, Alexis Perry is chatting with DNVR's Zach Stevens about the fallout from the Von Miller trade and where this Broncos roster needs to turn with the injuries starting to mount.
Thanks so much, Matt. Like you mentioned, here with Zach Stevens from DNVR. Zach, obviously the biggest news this week, Von Miller traded to the LA Rams for a pair of day 2 picks in the upcoming draft. What does this move tell you about what general manager George Paton is thinking in terms of the future of this franchise?
Well, it was too much to pass up. The Broncos could not turn down that offer because the way the team was trending, it looked like Von was probably going to be gone after this season anyways. And so you move on from Von 9 games earlier, but you get a second and a third round pick back. And you look at who's replacing him, Alexis, and there's a lot of talent there.
Yeah, let's delve a little bit deeper into that group. Who in that room is giving you a ton of hope that the Broncos have the pieces in place right now to replace Von Miller?
Well, look at the guy who replaced him last week. Malik Reed did a great job last week against the Washington football team, especially at the very end of the game. And that's where the team has always wanted Von Miller to step up, was in the end of the games. And we hadn't seen that much from the Broncos pass rush, but Malik Reed comes up huge at the end of the game to get that strip sack at the end, had 1.5 sacks last week. So that's a guy the Broncos turn to. And then also Jonathan Cooper. Talk about a guy who's been so impressive as a rookie coming in so far, and he has the size and the strength to be an outside linebacker in the NFL. So that's really those are the two guys who they look to.
Where did you see the greatest area of improvement from this Denver defense last week against Washington? And how could they really build off of that this week going into Dallas?
Well, the explosive plays on defense, they did not give those up. And what did we see so much this season was giving up those explosive plays, which no one expected, specifically in this secondary. And we didn't see that last week. And then also the run defense, what was better. They didn't give up those explosive plays, still gave up over 100 yards. You'll need to see that improve this week. But the defense did step up.
Well, on Wednesday, cornerback Bryce Callahan, he was placed on injured reserve. How does that affect this secondary, and who's stepping up in his place?
Well, we hadn't talked much about Bryce Callahan this year, and that's because he was doing really good. If you don't talk about a cornerback, it means good things are happening. But then you saw Nate Hairston step up, and he had a nice pass breakup at the end of the game. But he's going to be tested a lot more this week, going up against Dak and a really good receiving core that the Dallas Cowboys have. So I expect it to be him, but the Broncos do also have Kyle Fuller, who we know has struggled this year, but very experienced. So they could turn to him, and he could be a really easy piece to fill in.
Well, offensively, we did see the Broncos improve in the red zone, on third downs, and some critical areas, obviously, of the game. However, something just doesn't feel right. What is the biggest weakness, in your opinion, of this Broncos offense, and how do they remedy that this week in Dallas?
Well, I think it's something that we've heard from multiple people this week, multiple coaches, in fact, and that's the offensive line needs to create bigger holes for these running backs. You see Melvin Gordon, he gets hit 2 yards after the line of scrimmage and then is able to buy 2 more yards. Javonte Williams consistently is getting hit right at the line of scrimmage, and then he'll break one for a big play. But if they can get bigger holes, these running backs are really good, as we know, Alexis. They can break big plays, and you want to see them get a few more yards so that there's more room for them to explode.
Well, we'll get Steve Atwater's keys to the game here in just a second. But before we let you go, I have to get your #1 key to victory for the Denver Broncos this week.
Broncos have to shut down Ezekiel Elliott, just like they did in 2017, where they held him to 8 yards on only 9 carries. If the Broncos can do anything close to that, they'll win. The Dallas Cowboys are averaging 167 yards rushing on the ground in their wins, only 60 in their 1 loss. So get close to that and they'll win.
Zach, you are amazing. Thank you so much. You guys have to check out his work at thednvr.com. Follow him on Twitter. You already have 20,000 followers. Congrats, the big 20,000. On Twitter at Zach Stevens DNVR. Matt, let's send it back to you.
Thank you, Alexis. Okay, Steve. The Broncos have won 6 straight against Dallas, including the last 3 on the road. How are they getting it done this week in Dallas and keeping you in that gold jacket? Your keys to the game.
#1, get the ball to Jerry Jeudy early and often. What that's going to do is free up everyone else to make plays, because right off the bat, I think that that Dallas defense, they're going to be playing tough defense, but we can ease them up, lighten them up a little bit with Jerry Jeudy. A lot of other things will be able to come forth. Secondly, we cannot let the Dallas Cowboys rush for their average 150-plus yards this game. If we can keep them right around that 100-yard mark, everyone included, even Dak included, I think we'll be good.
Minnesota gave him the blueprint, Steve. I mean, you play bend, don't break defense. You can really hang with the Cowboys. But the Vikings were 1 for 13 on third down against the Cowboys. You can't do that. So if Bridgewater can be efficient, keep the offense on the field, keep time of possession, I think they're in this game. What do you think?
I like it. I like it.
All right, that'll do it for us on Broncos Weekend. Special thanks to the Hall of Famer, Steve Atwater. I'm Matt Boyer. So long, Broncos country. We will see you next week.